Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today I'm here with Brent Funk, guitar instructor and owner of Colorado Guitar Instruction. Brett, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Well, I brought Brett onto the show today because he is an entrepreneur. He's been doing it for a long time and very successfully, I might add. And he's also a cancer survivor. So I think he's got a lot of interesting wisdom and maybe even inspiration to share with us today. Also, Brett, before we get started, I dug up an old relic from back in the day because Brett was my guitar teacher for a long time too. Maybe you recognize this old guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my dad gave this to me a long time ago.
Can't get new strings for those anymore, though. It's too bad.
Right? Yeah, so yeah, no, just this made me think to bust this out. So tell us a little bit about your guitar school, how long you've been doing it, and roughly how many students do you have?
Sure. I've been teaching guitar since 1991, which was my junior year in college. I was a music major. While I was in college, I started managing Miller Music here in Longmont, and I managed it for 6 years and finished up my last 2 years of school for my music degree while I was managing the music store. And then I taught at the music store during that whole time, mostly advanced students, not like a full-time living because I was managing the store. But then after about 6 years of retail and teaching both, I decided I wanted to become a full-time teacher because I really enjoyed that interaction better than trying to sell somebody something, although that was fun. And but the whole retail thing just wasn't my bag. So I decided to open up Colorado Guitar Instruction in 1996. Actually, it was Colorado Music Instruction Center. It was a brick and mortar building. We had 5 studios, and I had a drum teacher, a guy who taught piano, plus all the brass and woodwinds for the kids that were, in the school band. I had 3 guitar teachers and a bass teacher. So there was 5 full running studios there all the time. And for 15 years, something like 14 or 15 years, that was a really prosperous business. What happened was a few teachers moved away. The old gentleman who taught all the piano and the brass and woodwinds passed away. And I found myself sitting in 100 square foot, or 1,000 square foot rather, like a strip mall space that I had built with my father from just a big open bay with the 5 rooms and all. And I was, the guy wanted to raise my rent and I was paying full overhead. And so I said to my wife, I'd like to move home. So we found a way to do that, to make the entrance to the house be like the entryway, a lobby for the parents and whatnot to sit. And there's a glass door so they can see their kid having a lesson with me. And I put together a really nice home studio, and it's been working really well. So it was in 2012. It was the year I actually had my cancer that you mentioned, and we can talk about that too here in a little bit. But I moved home and I changed, and this is an important thing. This is probably, if you want to take something away from the interview with me, it's this, and it's about branding. And let me explain what happened to me. I had a very successful business. I had a nice, rating on Google and everything. And not a lot of reviews because that wasn't a big thing that brought a lot of people my way. It was mostly because I played in a band with your father, and people saw me play guitar all the time, and they would come up and say, wow, I like what you're doing. I would say, I'm a teacher, come see me. And so I always had a full student load for that whole 9-year stint that I played with, the Joe Cool Band. So in 2012, that was the last year I played with your dad. And it was the last year it was the year I moved home. So as I'm moving home, I thought to myself, well, I've been playing gigs in this town and teaching in this town for over 20 years already. My name is probably the best way to brand myself. But my name is Brett Funk. So I came to my home studio and I named it Brett Funk Guitar Studio, thinking that would be great. So I changed my Google name and all that, and my top Google link was Brett Funk Guitar Studio. If you searched for guitar lessons, I wasn't getting any calls. And this went on for about 2 years, and I couldn't figure out what happened. It didn't dawn on me what had happened. And then this gentleman called me about lessons, and we were talking, and he was an airline pilot, and he said to me, well, I need someone who's flexible, and I read your website and I watched your videos and I'm interested. And we talked for about 20 minutes, and he signed up for lessons, and I was happy because I had a very small student load at that time. Because when I left Colorado Music Instruction Center, I had 39 students and 20 people on a waiting list to take
Wow.
lessons from me. And when I got here, over the next 2 years, students leave for a couple of varied reasons as a guitar instructor. The main one is usually I keep my students until they graduate high school and they head off to college, and then they've got more on their table. And I have had some students that stayed with me through college. I've had students that I got into music programs. In fact, one just this year, we just had his interview at the college, and he got into the music program, and that's a pretty big deal. So I've had 5 or 6 students that went through the same music program that I did, across the years, which was really great to get them prepped for that. All right, so I'm veering off, but let me go back to what happened with the branding. So I name it Brett Funk Guitar Studio. I've still got the top Google link, and no one's calling. My students are leaving for various reasons. Mom or dad move away or lose a job, or they graduate, those types of things. I never really had anyone quit because they said, I don't want to play guitar anymore, or I don't like lessons with you. So that's been good. And here's another statistic that's been well in my favor, and that is I've never had someone come to my studio and have a free hour introductory lesson and not sign up, not even once in almost 30 years. That's pretty crazy. So I'm not getting any calls, and my students are dwindling, and I've got half the student load I did when I got here 2 years later, and I have this phone call with this pilot who signs up for lessons, has been to my website, looked at my stats about me, my education and all that, signed up, and then said to me, "Can I ask you one more question?" And I said, "Sure, what's that?" And he said, "What's your last name?" And I said, "Well, Funk's my last name." And he goes, "Oh, I thought that was just the main type of guitar that you teach."
Funk guitar.
And I thought, oh my goodness, how did I not read what was right in front of my eyes? And it was simply this. People were reading my Google link, and it said to them, Brett's Funk Guitar Studio, not Brett Funk Guitar Studio. So they immediately dismissed it because funk guitar wasn't apparently what they were after at the time. So I had that epiphany of, oh my goodness, I funked myself, right? So what I did is I changed everything, and I created Colorado Guitar Instruction. I thought, I don't want to go back to CMIC. I'm not a full music studio with a bunch of rooms. I'm not a center. I'm a studio. I'm one room, one teacher teaching one-on-one. So I named it Colorado Guitar Instruction. And then I asked my students, all of my old students, I have logs of them because I keep track of everything. And I asked them, hey, would you mind leaving me a Google review? And they left me some reviews that almost brought me to tears. And then the next thing you know, I'm getting 2-3 calls a week, 2 calls a day. And now I'm up to a full capacity, and everything's going really well again. And it was all because of the name of my studio was not getting clicks on the Google page. It's that simple.
I kind of had a similar experience a while ago. It was one of my first cracks at doing business. I was selling t-shirts on Facebook, and I had something going there for a while. It was going hot. I was making money, but for some stupid reason, I decided to change the name, and I went through all the difficulties of getting Facebook to let you change the name. I redesigned everything, and to make it I wanted a more professional sounding name. And
Sure.
as soon as I did that, sales just dropped. It just murdered me. It killed the whole business. I couldn't revive it after that. So
So
it's
that
really
meant that the
cool.
branding you originally had maybe would have been better to have.
Oh yeah, I still think about that sometimes. Oh, why did I change the name? I'd have so much more money. But
Well, we all learn our lessons, and usually they can be hard ones, but the hard ones are the ones that you progress as a human being because you learned that.
oh, definitely. And it was one of the better lessons. It's all those weird little cracks at business I took and when I was younger really all just led up to what I'm doing now, and getting my business going right now. And I think it's really great that you were able to come back from that whole branding snafu, and it teaches people how important branding really is.
And there was some time in that time between 2012 and 2014, I think, where I thought, am I going to have to go out and get a real job? Because I get to do what I love all day long with people who want to learn what I know. I really can't imagine being happy or doing anything else. I love playing live, and it was a great time. And I'm going to play live some more again now that I'm fully recovered. I can't sing anymore like I used to. My muscle memory in my throat, because of this nice little scar they left me with, isn't there. I used to be able to play with your dad and not be able to hear my voice at all through the speakers because everyone was so loud on stage.
Oh yeah.
But I knew I was hitting the right notes because my throat could feel it, right? Well, that disappeared, and that's kind of a shame. That's really all I'm left with as a result. I beat cancer. I got very lucky, and the result is I can't sing like I used to, but it hasn't impaired me in any other way except for, some getting old aches and pains and being stiff and not whatnot. But
well, what was the comeback like from that? Like when you first decided to go through the treatment, which is obviously incredibly taxing on your
well, let's
body.
talk just a little bit about the cancer so it makes sense to anybody. Uh, it was a really hard year, 2012 for me. In the end of 2011, my best friend had a pneumonia and died. He was a drummer friend of mine. Right after that, my father got sick with cancer, and I watched him turn into a bag of tumors over a 4-month period. And my mother stood beside him until the moment he passed with her hand in his, and that was tough. And a week after we buried him, or actually 4 days later, I had a tonsil removed and found out I had squamous cell cancer inside that tonsil. And so they went in with the Da Vinci robot, which you should Google. It's a very interesting device. And they basically cut out what they call something margins, which means that they get anything that could possibly be a bad cell. And then I had a bunch of scans over the next few years, and I've been cancer free for 8 years now, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here because
Wow, congratulations, man.
I got lucky, man. Apparently there's a purpose for me on this planet, I guess.
Well, what did that, like, from when you first decided you were going to go for it, what did that do to your business? Because for a while there, didn't you lose your ability to actually, function and play?
Honestly, 2 weeks from the time
Only
I had
2
my
weeks.
surgery, I was playing on stage with your father and teaching lessons again. 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow, that is an amazing comeback.
Well, I didn't have to go through chemo. I didn't have to go through radiation. And those are terribly horrible things to have to endure. I simply had to recover from the surgery and get a clean PET scan, which is what they use to see if you have cancer cells in your body. And I got several of those over the course of the next few years. And now they're not even scanning me anymore, but I go in once a year and they scope and look at my throat. And I've got a wonderful cancer surgeon, and I'll just tell you straight out, his name is Dr. John Campana, and he saved my life. He works at, I think he has his own place now. But look for Dr. John Campana if you need a head, neck, and throat specialist, because he's absolutely the most crazy person on the planet I've ever met. But he'll save you if you can be saved, and he did with me, and I got lucky. So shout out to John, because he rules.
Well, as an entrepreneur, like, what was it like facing that? Because obviously, there's a lot of costs involved and whatnot, and like people like us, we don't have regular jobs, regular health insurance, anything like that. What was a little bit of the financial challenge to you as you're going through that, and still, trying to keep your business going?
Great question. For some reason, the powers that be have always had my back. And even though they put me through some horrible things, they put me in a situation where I'm able to recover. So to answer your question, my wife had a full-time job in great insurance, which covered, all but our out-of-pocket max. So I think the whole thing, cost me less than 10 grand overall for that first year. But we ended up maxing out some out of pocket over the next few years because the insurance covers everything after a certain point kind of deal. So it was a little bit challenging there for a little bit, but mostly I was just so grateful that I didn't die.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, take my money. Like,
Well, if you actually face the possibility that you might die and you go through the trauma that is that feeling, and then you don't die and you become a healthy person again, you come out of it with a different outlook on life. And I can't quite explain it. I think it's something you have to experience for yourself. But honestly, to be quite honest, as horrible as it was, it made me a better person in the long run because I have, I don't know, such a different view and more compassion for everybody else as a result, you know?
it's like a complete like renewal. Like,
Yeah. Yes, it was a very traumatic, scary time, and it took me a while to get my brain back together, you know? So right now you're seeing the best version of me since before it all happened, and I'm really happy. I got a full student load and things are going well, and it's great to see that you're doing so well too.
oh, thank you. And well, how long ago was it I was taking lessons from you? My dad signed me up before I moved out. It must,
You were
12
14
years
years,
ago. I think it was 15 or 16.
possibly.
I don't know. I remember I was working at Applebee's at the time. And
You can put that timeline together. You're asking an old with mostly lost memory cells at this point. I'm just glad you're asking about things I remember well.
right. So when this happened for you, was this like after you've transitioned into your current
It all happened at
brand?
the same time, man.
Yeah.
I I I had, okay, here's the timeline. My father passed away on April 22nd of 2012. 3 days later was my birthday. And then there's a whole other story behind that. But I asked him before he died if he would find a way to come back and let me know he had made it to the other side, and he did. And that's a whole nother pretty incredible story. But that happened on my birthday. So then right after that, we had a funeral here for him and then a funeral back home where I come from. And then 3 days later, I had the tonsil taken out, and I told you kind of how that timeline played into it. So that was May of 2012 that I went through the cancer part. And as of June of 2012, I had everything moved into this studio that I'm sitting in now, and it started teaching from here. And I had, at that moment, 39 students and 20 people on a waiting list, and everything looked great. And I'm pretty much sitting at the same spot. I have I have a full student load right now. In spite of the virus, I've been lucky that I've been able to do Skype lessons. I gave my students a discount so that, to help them through this time so I could continue teaching. And because it's not the same as being in the room with me where I can touch your hand and say, look, move it this way. There's certain limitations that come with it. But to be honest, my experience with the online lessons has been far above what my expectation was when I went into it, because I was dreading it. I was thinking, this is really not going to be even close to what it's like to give a lesson to a student who's been with me for 17 years
Yeah.
and knows what it's like to sit in the room with me. And yeah, I've got students that have been with me that long. Half my students have been with me for over 10 years right now in my list.
Wow.
And that's because they, I ask them, what keeps you coming back? They're like, because I love to learn another song. And then sometimes when you're a guitar instructor and you get close with people over time, they'll spend the first 15 minutes just talking about what's happened since I saw them last, which is fine. But I'm like, are we going to play guitar today? And they're like, we should probably do that. So it like I said, I've got the best job in the world. I get to do my complete passion and pass it on, pay it forward, and make a good living at it. So I'm a happy guy.
Oh, absolutely. And since you're one of the more successful teachers around here, because obviously it's very hard to get, from what I can see anyway, it's very difficult to get to that point where you have a full student load. You're a full-on career, because a lot of people, they're just doing the the flyer with the phone number tabs on it, maybe giving a couple lessons a week. And what does it take, do you think, for a guitar teacher to make that leap from just doing it on the side to try and make some money to actual real business, actual career,
How
real
about I approach
instruction?
it? How about I approach it from this standpoint? This is how I approached when I built my first studio. You know, oh God, what year was it? In 1996, 96 or 97. It was it was somewhere in there when I put Colorado Music Instruction Studio together. The technology was very limited. I mean, I didn't use any internet stuff. I I had a old camera that fed into a VCR.
I remember, I still got my tapes.
Got your VCR tape? And
Yeah.
I would play the song of me playing the song onto the tape, and then you would have your tape with all your songs on it. And then it went from there to me recording a library in like 2011 of, I had to use WMV as my final output because I had to keep the file small enough to fit on a thumb drive, and the biggest thumb drives back then were like 4,
Yeah, and they're really expensive too.
yeah, that was like for 4 gigs or something, but videos take up a lot of space. So I went from VHS to short videos, and right now I've built a green screen studio in my basement. You should just come down here and check it out, dude. And I'm getting ready to restart the entire library of songs, and I'm using Guitar Pro tablature. Uh, it's a program with all my students, and it's interactive where they can listen back and hear what they're supposed to be playing and speed it up and slow it down and choose a part and loop it. And it's, the bottom line is, I have what I believe is the most high-tech guitar teaching studio probably on the frickin' planet. I would put it up against anybody else as far as the tech they're using to get the information from here to here for a student, right? I teach them how to use digital recording. I teach them, well, every aspect of whatever it is that they're after. Some students could care less about any of that. All they want to do is learn how to play an old America tune or something like that. And they just keep coming back for that. And there's people who, I've got a guy who recently came in, Dan, and he said, I decided that I'm bored with my current job. And I think he's got a pretty lucrative job in IT, and he works from home. And he goes, I'm just bored with it. I want to be a musician for a living. And I said, wow, fantastic. You're my type of student. And he has some piano background, a little guitar. And this guy's been practicing his butt off because he's really serious about making a career out of music. He's 15 years younger than me, maybe, I don't know. I'm getting old, man.
So, as far as this like new integration of all this these new teaching tools, is this something that started more as a result of the virus, or were you tinkering with this
Oh, no.
beforehand?
These things have morphed over time. Guitar Pro, I started out with like the first release or within the first year or two. And if you're a guitarist and you don't have Guitar Pro 7 on your computer, then you're missing out on a great tool, and it's the one I use. And you can go out on the internet and find tabs, and I would say 70% of them are wrong. None of them are nearly as complete as the ones that I make for my students. I'll spend 6, 8, 10 hours just honing a tab down to where it's, I don't know, just the tab itself on the computer program looks like a work of art in itself, but it's nailed down. And when you listen to it back, it sounds like the song that you're learning. So it's very much more. But in the beginning, it was just a tool to make printouts of sheet music that looked better than my handwritten tabs, right? Because did you just get photocopies of handwritten tabs back when?
I think so.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago, though.
So the Guitar Pro program was for creating nice printouts, but the playback was just kind of mediocre back then, but they really improved it. I can basically make a song sound almost like the actual recording if I want to spend enough time tweaking things inside this software. So it's like $70 and you own it. It's not a pay by the month or anything like that. So I use
Very
that.
few pieces of software are.
And then I've got a buddy of mine in Australia who's building a website on my website, but he's building a new module, let's say, that's specifically for my students. What I've been doing is using a Trello board and putting all of their lessons each in a Trello card on a Trello board. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a way for you to work team, management, team events. Just look up Trello.com. It's a pretty cool thing. The only problem with that was if I found that I needed to update a tab because I found a mistake in it or something, I would have to go and look at every single student's board and make sure that they have the most current version. And there were some plugin options, but they were like $100 or more a month for that. And it depended on how many, people you had included in the group. And I thought, okay, so I talked to my buddy in Australia and he said, I'll build your site. And he's been working on it and it's looking great. And the back end's falling together nice. We're getting the front end together well too. And you're going to log in and what you're going to see is all the lessons that I teach on one column and all the lessons that you've been given on another. You can put what your status is on the lesson, whether it's a brand new song for you or a brand new lesson or something in progress or something you finished. You can make notes about it, like, oh, I was having a problem here. So when they get to the lesson, we'll be able to look at it and say, oh, okay, we can instantly nail down what the issue is that's causing them a problem with that specific song. So it's a place for them to take notes while they're practicing. And the page looks so cool. It starts out at the top with the name of the song and the picture of the album it came off of, all the statistics of the year it came out, the band and all that. Right underneath that, a video. Underneath that is a video of me playing the song. High res, high def, green screen is what's coming. But I just used the old high def 2011 series for the building of this website. And then right below that's the MP3 of the song. And below that are links to the guitar profile and a PDF of a printout of the guitar profile. So you can be on any device that you're on and just be on my site, click on your lesson, click the PDF and see the music. Or you can even have your phone play back the guitar profile or a tablet. And it's only like $8 for the app on a phone and I don't know, $12.95 for the tablet. But man, since I started incorporating everybody using Guitar Pro and having the Trello board and the videos and being able to just get all of the information they need in one spot, and I've been talking them into setting up a workstation, something similar to mine. It doesn't have to be as elaborate as what's in this room, which you can't really see because it's all that direction. But the point is I get my students to set up a practice space for themselves. So when they get home, they can just go to their Trello board, they can open up Guitar Pro, sit down, tune up, and play. And anytime that, that the urge strikes to practice a little, their guitar is sitting on a stand kind of calling to them, not just stuck in a case in the closet somewhere. And my students just have exponentially been getting better at a faster rate. I have hardly any turnover at all right now. I think I have one open slot on a Saturday afternoon once a month.
Well,
but
wish we could all be in that situation.
That was before the COVID thing. So honestly, actually, I have about 75% of my student load, which is a little over 30 students are doing Skype lessons with me at a discount right now. And that's just fine because I want to give back. I love my students. They're like my family, just like you have always been, and your father and, the rest of your family. So.
Well, so with all this, integration and the overhead involved with running your business, how do you decide how much you actually charge someone for lessons?
I go with market value and try to stay $5 underneath my nearest competitor, of which 3 of the teachers either came from my studio or were my students. But that's just fine. The marketplace at the time when they went to the music store instead of the studio, a couple of my teachers left because you have a better chance when you're starting as a teacher if you have a brick and mortar store that you're teaching, at that store, but they're going to take 20% of your earnings right off the top, So I didn't ever want to go that way. And it took a while to build it up. But like I said, you know, I've been playing in bands in this town forever. Word of mouth travels fast. And I remember starting out the business. And, you know, here's a funny story about my father. And that is, he said to me when I was in college, he said, I think it's great that you want to pursue a career in music, but how many years are you going to give it before you get a real job? Now, these are his words.
A real job. I've heard that plenty.
In 1991 or 92, when I was still in college, right? So then in 96 or 7, whichever year it was, that he and I and his best friend Don are building this studio. You should see the walls. They look like we didn't know what we were doing, and we did not. But you know what? It worked. And we soundproofed the crap out of that thing. But if you walk into the inside, the walls are like this. Not that bad, but it's noticeable. It's like Alice in Wonderland or something. So as we're building this studio and it's all finished, and I'm, you know, getting ready to get all my students lined up and everything, my dad looks at me and he says, man, I don't know if this is appropriate for the video, but this is his exact words. He goes,
oh, no worries.
He said, it takes balls to do what you're doing, son. He goes, there's no way I could possibly believe in myself enough to do what you're doing, going into business for yourself from scratch. And I thought, wow, complete vindication from the, when are you going to get a real job? You know, so that was one of the highlights of my life, was that moment when my father conceded that, hey, I stuck it out and it worked, you know. So
well, I think that's a really good segue into one question I ask everybody, like, and I think it's a good you know, wrap up sort of question. What would you tell, not necessarily a music teacher, but any young entrepreneur who's out there staking their claim, trying to get their business set up, just doing whatever it is they love, whether it be building furniture, doing art, playing guitar, teaching guitar, etc. What advice or what would you say to any young entrepreneur out there trying to make it happen?
that's the toughest question you've asked me, and that's because the landscape has changed so drastically since I began my business. You know, I'm completely equipped, completely experienced, and when a person comes into my studio, they sign up for lessons with me because they're kind of overwhelmed with all that I have to offer them, is pretty much my final synopsis of why it's working so well for me. You know, I've heard various of schools of thought on this, but I've always gone with this, and that is, find your one thing and be the best you possibly can at it, and explore all of the possibilities that that thing has to offer you. So I can't imagine right now that there's any part of teaching guitar that I'm not doing to its fullest extent, with the fullest amount of technology available to make it happen as quickly for my students as possible at this point. And I think that's the goal that you need to reach if you're gonna, you know, be able to keep students as a guitar instructor, or any kind of instructor for that matter. And you have to know what you're talking about, because people will instantly know if you're, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
But here's the thing that's been, I think, more the saving grace than anything, is a lot of my students, maybe more than half of them, have had lessons from other teachers or have been playing for 15 or 20 years. And when they come in here and they see what I have to offer, they know that they're probably not going to find this anywhere else. And I point blank tell them, I don't think that anyone else is offering this, at least not in this neighborhood that I'm aware of. I certainly hope that there are other teachers out there who take it as seriously as I do, but it's my full-time job. It's what I do all day long. I get to play guitar all day long, dude. It's a no-brainer for me, man. So yeah, but I can't tell you how to become social media giant, because I'm not. I've got 500 subscribers on a YouTube channel I've had since 2007, and it's only really just to show my students playing the songs they've learned, or how my studio works. And I haven't even updated that in a long time. I seriously need to sit down and revamp the whole thing. But I've been gearing up over the last 2 years to get the YouTube channel up and running, to get all of my library redone with beautiful green screen gear. Yeah, let's talk later and make a plan for you to come down and check it out, because
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
for sure. I
Well,
hope I've answered all your questions.
oh no, I thought this whole conversation was really informative, and I really think anybody that listens to it can definitely get some value out of it. Brett, tell people how to contact you, or throw a website out there, or if they're interested
Sure.
in working
It's
with you.
pretty simple. Colorado Guitar Instruction. We'll pull it up on Google, or you can go to brettfunk.com. That's BRETTFUNK.com, all one word, and it'll take you right to my website. And what I can say is I hope everyone survives this horrible COVID-19 that's happening right now. It's April 14th, and we're right past the week they said they thought was peaking in New York. Who knows what is going to happen? I hope everyone is wise enough to, we got to come together as a community to beat this, I believe. And, I'm no one to preach. I'm just staying at home. I haven't left the house in a month.
That's why I started this podcast. I've been stuck in here. I can't do anything. Well, all my businesses are on hold for the most part. And I can't really do anything except talk to people.
Well, I think that you are one of the great examples of somebody who just kept at it until they got what they wanted out of life. And that's what I would advise any young person to do, is find what you love and see if you can make a living at it, and not let it destroy the thing that you love. So you have to be careful. You have to keep a balance. And I can't imagine what's happening with the folks out there. I mean, just say that they're in our everyday situation where they just are stuck at home. I stay at home because I teach from my house. So not leaving doesn't seem like a very odd thing to me. But even I'm feeling a little bit of cabin fever. I'm imagining that the people who commute every day are suffering terribly. I remember my whole first year of teaching here in this studio and not driving the 10 minutes to work. There were days when I would just get in my truck and drive around the block. So I felt like I was leaving the house and going to work. Now I have a 2-step commute from my front door to my studio door. And it just doesn't get any easier than that. So it's working out well. But stick with it, stay safe, be smart, make smart choices, and brand well if you're creating a business for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. We got 2 examples on this episode about why to, pay attention to that.
Yep.
Well, awesome, Brett. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and take it easy.
My pleasure, Cameron, man. I love you, kid. I always have.